Yeah, we're up.
Go to hit the share and let's hope Twitter doesn't crash us out this time.
Yeah,
That
I know,
sucked
right?
last week. Not my favorite.
Oh, remind me, there's something I need to talk to you. I mean, I guess I could say it online, but I did get a email from the podcast folks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there was something that with one of their updates, like as far as like the downloads go, so they said the numbers would look a little different,
Okay.
but not a big deal. I can forward that email to you actually, just so you can see it. All right, I have shared.
Okay, here we go. So, the 54 already?
It is 54, almost as old as Rob. Shit, I'm just kidding.
No, you're not.
No, actually, no, fucking. That dude's still out there pushing fucking some serious weight, though.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen it, but holy
He's
shit.
insane, dude. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. All right, here we go. You ready?
Hit it.
Slightly above average gamers, way above average podcast. Welcome to the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast with your hosts, J007TV and Sub1KD.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 54. Yes, I got it right this time, of the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. Good morning. Happy Saturday. I am J007TV and joined, as always, by my co-host, Sub1KD. What's up, my dude?
Not much. Been working hard, getting a lot of stuff going on. And then this background. You like my new background?
Yeah, it looks like you actually have a lot going on, bro.
Yeah, so tore everything down and finally started working on this long talked about office project. So hopefully another week and I'll have stuff on the walls, or at least have walls.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people know you're under construction, so not a big deal. I think it's good. I can't wait to see the final, final project because I did mine back in I think February or whatever, January and February, and that was a process. I mean, you're doing a lot of the work yourself, right?
All of it.
Okay, so you're doing all of the work yourself. I got to admit, I'm not a handy kind of guy when it comes to certain things. I mean, listen, I can do some framing, but I have to have somebody basically telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I had somebody do it, but I think it's really cool that you were able to get your permits approved by the missus and the boss and then get everything rolling, man.
Yep, and this is the first time I've gotten pre-approved permits and not have to have post-construction apologetics going on.
Well, just wait till the inspection process. But yeah, it's one of those things. I guess you've always kind of taken the approach of it's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
One time in our first house, I took down a wall while she was at work, like just demoed the whole wall.
Wow. How'd that work
out? When she got back, she was a little shocked. And then I told her, trust me, it'll be great. You'll love it. It didn't go over well. But she loved it. And so it worked out, and I'm still alive. But lesson learned.
Well, listen, when all else fails, just use this. Calm down. You need to calm down. It works every time like a charm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. For anybody who is tuning in and new, please don't try that at home. Experts only.
No, I want you to, and then report back to us how it worked out.
No, because then they don't report back, and we lose a follower.
Wow, that's true.
Because they're dead.
Fair enough. But how was your week, man?
Week was good. Did not get nearly as much time on the game as I would have preferred. Mm-hmm. Because on top of everything else, if you didn't know, I've been in an MBA program for a while, and this is final. This was like a big push right now. Had a lot to do, and then on top of that, all the other stuff going on, and the playlists have kind of been trash, so it's kind of hard to get geared up to play. But yeah, busy week, a lot going on. Had a deck project. Just projects. Trying to get all the big projects in before the winter hits.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, so we left, because our last episode we ended up recording on Tuesday so it could drop this Monday. We left on Wednesday and flew into Vegas and then drove. I thought it was supposed to be like an hour and a half. It ended up like 3 hours, but we drove into Arizona and stayed in a place called Fredonia, Arizona, which is right outside of Kanab, which is known as Little Hollywood out there because I guess they filmed a lot of like the old school like Western movies and shows like Lone Ranger, The Outlaw Josie Wales, or whatever. I don't know if you know any of those, but anyway, so we drove in. It was funny because the first thing we actually did was we tried to go see the Hoover Dam, which we were able to get to, but the SUV that we got, which was not what we asked for. We had all our fucking bags in there, dude. You should have seen it because you get about this much space, enough for like a couple bags in the back. And so the people that were in the third row were like basically underneath bags and everything. And we'd asked for a minivan. So they give us that SUV after waiting an hour and a half in line. Then we drive to the Hoover Dam, and on the way there, the SUV starts doing this like whining sound, like you hear like those straight trucks, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great.
Where they whine, and the engine is revved. So we're like, yeah, that shit ain't going to work. So we had to go back and exchange the car out from Dollar to Hertz. They're the same company. And then we drove 3 hours in. And then, so the next day we went to Zion National Park and did the e-bikes were fucking fantastic, dude. I mean, I didn't have it revved up to like 5 or anything. I kept it on usually around 2. So I was at least still getting some exercise, and rode about 10 and a half miles that day. So
Right.
it was really cool. Zion was beautiful. Then the next day we did Bryce, which, God love my wife, right? She basically looks out for everybody, and I'm an idiot sometimes. So before our trip, she's like, hey, check with everybody, make sure they got comfortable shoes and these kind of things, hiking, right? And when she asked me, she's like, do you have comfortable shoes? I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, my Nikes are pretty goddamn comfortable, right? Like, they're comfy. Little did I know she was talking about comfortable, but also being able to hike in these shoes. So we're going down into Bryce Canyon on these zigzags. And like, dude, I'm like literally like extending my leg out and like putting pressure on it to make sure I'm not like sliding down these fucking trails. Dude, I was so beat after hiking down into the canyon and then having to hike back up. It was unreal. So we did that, and then I think the next day we did Grand Canyon, and that was the best one. We did the north rim of the Grand Canyon, by far the best part of the trip.
Did you go down in it?
No, we didn't go down in it. We were up on the north rim, and to get there, like you drive through like a forest and a national park, and you see deer and turkey and all kinds of other shit. It was really dope, but it was nice to actually be gone for like a week and unplug from the gaming, at least. I mean, I was still on social media here and there dropping photos, but like just not playing anything, and to get that kind of reset and recharge.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back, but the next couple weeks are going to still be crazy. I've got 2 trade shows. I have one this week and one the following week that I'm actually running the trade shows, so that ought to be fun.
Nice. That's good. Good to have one of those that opportunity to kind of step up in work. So
yeah,
very good. So how much gaming did you get done?
I've played Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So last night, I mean, and this kind of dovetails, it's kind of 2 in 1, really. As you all know, Raven just announced that for the time being, or at least minimum October 17th, I think it's going to go through longer than that. They have truncated the playlist down to solos and quads only for BR. I think Resurgence has all the regular playlists, and then minus trios because they're leaving trios on ranked. So it's kind of one of those things. It's either I have a full 4 stack or I'm running solos. So I ran solos last night. But I played multiplayer for probably about 2.5 hours, and the games were pretty good. Overall, I got shit on a couple times, but I had some really good matches overall. And then kind of the same thing for solos. Last night, I'm running solos. I'm fighting a guy in fucking Old Town, and I get shot in the back by none other than Rallied, which is the second time I've been in one of his lobbies. And if you don't know, he's top 250, so he shoots me in the back. But the crazy thing is, so I spectated him for a while, and he ends up killing the guy that I was trying to kill. This dude spammed literally 8 breacher drones through a fucking window. I'm like, he's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm like, when does this shit end, bro? Like, it's crazy that he was able to do that. But he ends up killing that guy. And then, the matches overall were pretty decent. Like I said on Twitter, I mean, I had him in my lobby. I had some Eries, some Crims. I also had some people that looked like they were making love to the wall, just window lickers. And I ended up getting a solo win. Nice little 6-kill, 2,500 damage solo win.
Love it.
On the night. And, yeah, it was good, man. Did you get to play it all last night, or were you doing all that?
Yeah, last night I was toast. I finished this, and then we have out-of-town family coming this weekend, so it's been a madhouse of trying to get the house pulled together. And so, of course, I decided, hey, Friday is the day I want to do this project.
Yeah.
Smart. Good choice. Wife loved it. But I played Friday night a bit, and I played Wednesday.
So this last week?
Yeah. But, it's one of those things where I am, real quick. So we do not have all the modes in Resurgence. We only have duos and quads in Resurgence. So no solos.
But you have trios for ranked.
But it's ranked. So,
yeah.
It's kind of like depending on where you are in your ranked journey, if you aren't ready to solo queue and carry 2 randos, you better have a squad together. So kind of a not really going to give them credit for putting trios in, right? Not going to do that. So they, Raven did not win the internet yesterday with that tweet.
No, they got ratioed by basically everybody, from normal guys like you and I to the larger content creators. I know TP was unhappy. Just Iceman Isaac, J God, Modern Warzone, like they were catching it from everybody. And
rightfully
I've never
so.
seen them do this before. Holy shit. That sounds about fucking right. All right, I got to remove this brisket. So, sorry. Yeah, that was the other thing. I threw a brisket on overnight last night, an 18-pound brisket, and I got to remove it from the heat, but I just got to wrap it. So,
I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. I'm gonna yak your ears off. You go.
Yeah. I'll be right back. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no. So they got ratioed hard. My favorite is they got ratioed by Codmunity, friend of our podcast, previous guest. And he absolutely almost 5,000, almost double the ratio. Of course, his tweet was "use me as a dislike button," which is absolutely on the point. But people are so dissatisfied with the playlist offerings we've had this year, and so when Jay gets back, we want to talk a little bit about some possible reasons why. Absolutely, but it was an absolute disaster, in my opinion, of a playlist and a decision, right? It's been an ongoing set of decisions this year that I don't know, we don't know why they're making these choices. If these choices are strategic in some way that we don't understand, if they're somehow designed to accommodate a lower player count. I have my theories. I know Jay has some ideas. And the internet has many, many others. I refuse to believe that it's just straight incompetence, right? Like they just don't know what we want, because, we do know that, they monitor social media. They know what we say. So the idea that they don't know that people want to play this stuff is completely off base, I think, in my opinion. But there's no way to it's just a nonsensical thing that they're doing here. I don't understand why, unless the player count is so bad they just can't support it. which, is possible. And there's a lot of concern, in my opinion, in my books, that what they've done is actually remove popular playlists to force people into these alternate modes, these LTMs, in Warzone, and that they're abandoning Warzone, more or less abandoning it until we get the integration back with Black Ops, which is honestly, I think, the most likely. Like, the most likely thing they're doing is bouncing, kind of punting Warzone, just like they kind of did with multiplayer, how they punted. We know they punted a number of maps from the end of this season, and then they've taken those for Black Ops 6 and their seasons. So we'll see kind of how, what they have cooked up for Warzone. Maybe they took the changes for Warzone and they punted it. How was your brisket, sir?
It's good. I have wrapped it and put it in the cooler, and so now we wait. We'll be having dinner, which is lunch and dinner. So
late lunch, early dinner counts for both.
Yeah. I'm
hungry
excited
at 9:30.
Yeah,
perfect.
But I mean, do it overnight. You know how it is. But yeah, so I came back and you were talking about them punting some of the changes for Warzone and just some of the maps for Black Ops 6, right?
Yep. And I think it's one of those things where I was saying it is hard to say. It's really hard to know what's in their head right now, right? And whether they're punting this because of player count or because they want to push everything to Black Ops 6 multiplayer, right? Like, these are all viable options. But, they've struggled to have a complete playlist rotation all year, which is, an implication in a lot of ways of what's going on behind the scenes, because, if they have a robust player base all year, then, the player base will support the different modes and they won't have to kick stuff around as much.
Well, so all right, let's back up to when this map first launched, right? With Urzikstan first launched. They did say that through the first season, they were going to keep solos, duos, trios, and quads. So all standard playlists on the map. And in the rotation. And they did that. They kept their word on that. And actually, they kept it like that for, I think, at least through like season 3. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that. And then they started kind of coming in with a little bit of the, different limited time modes and things like that. And listen, I don't have a problem with like limited time modes. I think those are cool. Like we talked about on the phone call the other day, that Christmas limited time mode with the runaway train, that's how we got that into the game now. Like that's part of the regular BR experience. That's one of the parts of it. And that's cool. I think it's a nice little it kind of changes it up a bit. So I have no problem with the limited time modes. I just believe that the standard size playlists should be in the game no matter what. I don't give a fuck what the player count is. If we have to wait a couple minutes to get into a match, fine. Whatever. But, I'll tell you, last night playing solos, I actually had a little bit longer queue times than normal. It seemed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like normally I'm in a game within about what feels like, and I could be wrong, about 30 to 60 seconds. Sometimes it was like 2 minutes. Oh my God, 2 minutes. I can't believe I had to wait 2 minutes to go from one game to another. But like, I just wish that they would leave the regular playlists in the game. And, because now, unless I'm 4-stacked, I'm playing solos, man. And it discourages you from playing with friends. I'm not going to go play Resurgence. I'm just not going to do it. I don't want to. I'm a big map BR player, not a Resurgence player.
Yeah. Well, and I think that as many people have pointed out, it's telling that, their data says that big map is unappreciated and unwanted because, they've killed it. Like they've just beaten it down, left it to die. And so of course nobody wants to play it because it's been abandoned. Yeah. I mean, I'll play both. I have pretty evenly split time in both modes. I just don't find the current BR loop as enjoyable right now. Part of it because, obviously I don't have a full squad to run with, so I don't usually get that opportunity to actually run with a cohesive group. And part of it being that they just haven't done anything with it for months. Like, it's just, it's the same thing. It is fun, aside from Superstore and making Pop-Off green, it is fundamentally the same map we played last December, right? Like, nothing has really changed. And
Right.
instead of doing anything, really, they've just let it rot. And it just isn't as... There's nothing new under that sun, right? Like, you can hop in and play the same route over and over again. But, there's no engaging... It's not even like in Verdansk when they had a story, at least, right? Like, there were, like, every season you got some new, storyline, you got some new interesting thing. The limited time modes that they had on Big Map, had a reason to be there. Remember the satellite falls where just the whole map sounded like it was exploding the whole time?
And the red doors.
And the red doors, and you just had so many things going on in Big Map that it was always an interesting, like, there was always something interesting going on, right? And
Right.
a lot of it, I mean, let's be honest, the storyline never seemed to make sense, but at least it was there, right? You could pretend it made sense. You could pretend you were doing something for a reason. And I think that's one of those things that's been lacking since Modern Warfare 2 is any kind of drive or reason to put people there and reason for things to happen, right? They kind of threw that a little bit with the green goo stuff, but really, like, it, Superstore just appeared, right? There's nothing behind it, right? We need to throw a familiar POI so people don't quit the game. And then, we have Rebirth Island back, which is great, right? It, compared to Ashika, much better opportunity. But again, there's no cohesion. There's no it doesn't do anything, right? The map is there. That's great. The player count has got to be down, like, significantly.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is. But also, again, this is kind of what you and I have talked about several times. We want to look at, like, the data, but we're not looking at the why. Like you said, you just literally said they have more or less ignored the big map for the entire life cycle of this title, Modern Warfare 3. They've ignored the big map for that in favor of Resurgence. So in doing so, when the experience is still, I mean, there were still issues off the rip anyway with the game because, you look at, like, the weapon balancing and no real fun weapons to really use until the STG came out, and they've nerfed that. People are playing other things. And when you fuck with the playlists and you're forcing people into having to play, like Modern Warfare 2, right? Like Warzone before. I remember when they were screwing with the playlists for Al Mazrah, so I ended up I had to play Resurgence. I didn't want to, but I had to. I had no other choice because I don't even know that they had solos. Otherwise, I would have been doing that, or maybe I just didn't like solos at the time. But my point is that there's a why to it, and no one ever wants to really consider that. They just want to take the fucking data as gospel.
Yeah, or they have some design in the back end that they're not telling us, which equally possible, right? They're sitting there and they want to make people as dissatisfied with Warzone as possible so that they'll hop into multiplayer, and then when Warzone integrates, then it'll be such a shiny new jump in everything that people will flock back.
Dude, it's going to be like, they're going to do exactly like the Biden administration did after the pandemic, claiming all the fucking jobs created, like, as a success. So they're going to do the same thing with this fucking deal, like you said. that Verdansk is going to come out, player numbers are going to shoot up at least for a while, and they're going to be like, well, see, it's like, well, yeah, you X percentage more players. Yeah, cool. You killed the game for a whole year, so people stopped playing it. It was your own making as to why there's this increase or whatever. But the other thing, too, that I don't think we're talking about enough is early on, and maybe it's just like this with every title and every iteration of Warzone, the communication is top notch. I mean, Ted Timmons was on Twitter literally every day, and Raven was. Now it's basically, they were explaining certain things, they were on top of certain things, that kind of stuff. Now it's basically like, you're gonna eat what I fucking made you, like, as you would say to your kids, like,
Yeah.
Here's your fucking meal. This is what you're eating. The end. That's what they do with these update announcements. So like, they clearly didn't want or weren't going to take any feedback from anybody with this playlist thing, even though the majority of people that I've seen on Twitter fucking hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've never done this before, right?
It's weird.
Josh on Twitter made the point that they never did this before any other integration, right? They didn't do it before Cold War. They didn't do it before Caldera. They didn't do it before they didn't even, like Modern Warfare 2. I mean, I guess you could say because they kind of let Caldera die off, but Caldera still existed, right? I'm trying to remember. So I stopped playing before that integrated.
They didn't leave it alive very long because they knew they had to force people to play Warzone 2. Mm-hmm. Because if given the choice of Warzone 1 or Warzone 2, a majority of the people would have chosen Warzone 1. Just because Warzone 2 was that unpopular.
But I would say at the start that wasn't necessarily true.
Yeah, we all tried it.
But I think I'm trying to remember. I think Caldera is like probably the only exception to them messing with playlists, because if I remember right, they had it pared down so it was only big map. Did it have the 4 modes?
I'm pretty sure it did.
Because they got rid of Resurgence, if I remember right. When they got rid of Resurgence when the big map dropped, or when Modern Warfare 2 came out, and then they got rid of Caldera shortly after the integration happened. But yeah, Warzone. Did Warzone launch day and date, or was there a delay? Do you remember?
Warzone. So are you talking about Warzone 2?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come until like December.
Okay, so that's normal December timeframe.
I think, or maybe it was even November. It might have been November, because I remember, I could tell you because I actually have the clip from my first win on that map.
Yeah.
It was a TikTok, but yeah, I'm almost certain it was either November or December. It was not in October.
I think it was December. I think
maybe
they launched
early
it,
December.
Yeah, I think they launched it like first week of December. Mm-hmm. And then you had all 4 modes at that launch. That was kind of a weird situation because they were switching platforms. So I kind of I give it a little bit of a pass, I guess. But yeah, the other integrations that actually worked out, they were not screwing with the playlist like months in advance, like weeks. Like we're from now until they integrate Warzone or Black Ops 6 with Warzone, which is probably going to be that first week of December, start of season 1 again. Like, we've got time between now and then.
So with your tech background, what are some reasons why they would do this? Do you think the Omni movement is just they're trying to maybe test some things, allocate those servers for testing, like some of those servers for testing and that kind of stuff? Or why would they do that?
Well, optimistic. So Activision, what's left of Activision, is in a weird spot. They were signed with Google, right? If you remember this, they signed with Google, and that's why they switched the CDL over to YouTube, right? And then, and part of the deal was they were using Google servers. And then within, 6 months of that announcement, that that's what they were doing, which implies that they've been on Google servers for a while. Then what happened is Microsoft stepped in and decided they're going to buy Activision, right? So that came like fairly close. And then I think the servers have been downhill since then. And and certainly they've been in the toilet since it became clear that Microsoft was going to get Activision, right? Like right around the time that all the court cases fell apart and they were struggling to, other companies were starting to cope with the fact that they were going to actually do this thing. I feel like that's when the servers started tanking. So one possibility is that they are getting ready to switch off of Google servers onto Microsoft servers, which would be, kind of a big deal, right? So they might be moving data centers and needing to shut down old data centers to fire up and test new data centers. And so they need to have as few instances running as possible.
So acceptable losses in the player count between now and then.
Yeah. And I mean, if that's what they're doing and if if they fix it and we get good servers, then
worth it,
right? It could be that they simply need to have, to do software like, updates to the servers or reconfigure something on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Could be straight up a cost saving measure. You just cut down the number of so basically what happens is every time you're running a game, right? That's an instance on the server. And so the more different games you have, the more different setups you have on your server stack. So that means there's there's servers sitting and waiting to run games, in different modes that may or may not be filling, or, it's just eating space in your available servers, right? And so basically the way these things work is, unlike the past where you literally had computers in racks in your office, right? And that's where all the games were played on. These are all cloud-based servers. So these giant server farms will just have millions of computers all wired together, basically. And when one is full, right, and it just copies itself to the next one and starts running that. And so that's how, and then, when of course, traffic goes down, then the servers close down and they can be allocated for other things. And that's kind of how this, AWS is known for this Amazon's web server. But Google and Microsoft and all the big boys have their own versions of AWS out there. And so what we're seeing, what we would see in this sort of scenario is, in order to cut costs, they need to reduce the number of simultaneous servers that they kind of have up and running at any given data center. And to do that, one way to do that is to cut down the number of different versions of the game that are out there, right? So if you only have, if you have 20 different modes, then at all times you need 20 different servers ready to take players. So if you cut that down, then you could probably condense everybody into, 12 or 15 servers and save some money. Possibility.
No, that's a great explanation.
Yeah. And so those are, from a technical standpoint, those are some possibilities of why they're doing it. Could be that they want to allocate their server space for, testing, right? They need, they need to cut down the number of instances so that they have, they can test different systems. Maybe they're actually installing Ricochet and they want to test that out. So a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to know what's going on, what could be going on from a technical standpoint. So it could be they're also starting to switch over, server space for multiplayer, right?
Because that's less than a month.
Yeah, a couple weeks. It's less than a month. So the 25th, 28 days or something.
Yeah.
So,
I already got my time off approved, baby, for launch day.
Nice. But yeah, no, it's there's a lot going on. A lot that could be going on behind the scenes, and of course there's the phantom of there could be just not enough players to to fill all the modes and have them play this LTM they spent all this money on.
Have you played any of the Haunting?
I've played the Purgatory mode because it had a camo.
How's that?
It's a lot of fun, dude.
Really?
It actually is a lot of fun. If you like playing multiplayer and you like Warzone, you should play the Purgatory mode. And so it is basically it's an endless team deathmatch on Rebirth Island with Warzone mechanics.
Sounds like big map.
Yeah, except you just respawn with your stuff immediately.
Yeah.
It is.
I say that in jest, but
yeah, it's fun. Because you don't have to do. It's fun because you don't have to like do any of the bullshit. If you run into somebody who's, if you run into a sweat, you just respawn and go somewhere else. And there's, you don't have to go back for your stuff. But they're throwing in a lot of little extras in there that are interesting. So they have super perks in the mode where you have like kind of like combination of ridiculous power-ups like ground slam, right? Kind of like how the Juggernaut, right? If you jump with the Juggernaut, it'll do damage and stuff. It's like a small explosion when you land. But so you can have that, or you could have super jump, or you could have unlimited ammo. Was another one where your gun never runs out of ammo. You just keep shooting it.
That's crazy.
Unlimited nades. I got a couple of kills the other night just spamming nades on top of prison. Just nade.
That's crazy.
It was the guy, the death comic. I was like, what the hell was that?
Of course you like the broken shit.
But you can only have one at a time, right? So if you pick up a new power up, you lose the one you had, so you can't like become super crazy. But the game was the mode is fun. It also has a version of Shipment in a floating island, floating above the map that you can drive, which is crazy.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And so driving it around is actually fairly enjoyable until you get shot in the back while you're driving because somebody lands on you.
Mm-hmm.
But the overall, I think the mode is terrific. And shocking, right? I read it, and I believe if we go back a couple episodes, I was probably pretty negative about that episode, about that going into it. So I'm surprised that I've had as much fun as I did. I definitely recommend it as a practice mode, right? Or as if you want to test out a loadout, because kills don't count. You always have your stuff. It's great for grinding XP. So if you want to get your gun up to your mastery on a gun, it's a great opportunity for that because you just always have it. The Warzone rewards count. So things like pinging enemies or completing contracts.
Interesting.
Those are, so it's a good mode. It's a good mode for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I might screw around with it a little bit today. And you and I talked yesterday, and I tweeted this. With the fuckery that's going on with the playlist, I might actually, for the hell of it, just to see what I can do ranked wise, for Resurgence. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that. Obviously, it's going to be determined on who I can get to play it with me because I'm not solo queuing. Fuck that. I have no interest in that. I'm out on that. If I'm going to solo queue, I'll just go run solos. But, I'm thinking about doing that, and I plan on playing a lot of multiplayer between now and Black Ops 6, just kind of grinding that out. So that's just kind of where I am at, as far as playing and stuff like that. Did you see, they brought in Daryl Dixon and Michael Myers and some of the other operators that they brought in? Pretty cool.
Sure. I mean, horror movies aren't usually like the genre I get excited about. So it's kind of like, it's fun to see them, but I'm not like, oh yeah, yay, Michael Myers have to have. So
only scary movie I really like. The only scary movie, like the first couple, is the Michael Myers Halloweens.
Yeah.
That bit with the masks and the kids going fucking crazy, I'm out on that one.
Yeah.
But when they went back to Michael Myers, like I like him, but I did buy Daryl Dixon, and part of it's because which actually there's a workaround for that, but my COD points are not going to roll over for whenever I go start playing on the Xbox launcher,
Right.
because I have them in BattleNet. So I've bought I bought the Daryl Dixon thing and everything, and I'd like to be able to get more COD points, but my Battle Pass is not fucking working. That's broken right now. Like, I have not gotten a single token in 2 days worth of playing.
Well, that's not good.
No.
You sure you don't have it set to automatic?
Yeah, I'm at like 49%. Like, the tokens are not even ticking up.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, so
And they've had that. That's happened before. Usually, when that happens, it like catches up one day. Like all of a sudden, you'll have like 10 of them, and you're like, oh, well, that's nice.
yeah, I mean, I'm not tripping too hard over it. But yeah, and I guess the other thing is though too is I can still launch Warzone through BattleNet and use my COD points that way if I have any extras. So, there's that. I tried to load the game yesterday on the Xbox app just to see if it'll catch up, but it didn't. No.
Yeah. So it'll get there eventually, I'm sure. But yeah, it's been, I'm going to say this is probably one of the most lowest received hauntings, like Halloween events that I think I've ever seen. Underwhelming is a great word for it. I'm underwhelmed by it. And a good part of it is that there's nothing on Big Map. There's just nothing.
There's scary music in the plane. I don't know if you've heard that, but you can kind of hear it in the background. It's almost like some kind of variant of like the Michael Myers theme song. You can kind of hear
cinematic volume turned off.
Yeah, and
so I don't hear any music.
There's no jump scares in Big Map. I haven't had one of those. Like it's underwhelming. And this is coming from somebody who I didn't really like the Diablo one last year. You and I played that together.
Yep.
I didn't really like it, but we played it because we didn't have a choice. Like, they legit shut off daytime in Al Mazrah during that stretch. So,
but it was a good mode. Like
it was all right.
Like, you didn't have, like, whether or not you liked the aesthetic of it, like the way they did the nighttime mode was terrific. The way they did the I mean, there was a lot going on. There was a lot to do. They really revamped how the POIs work, right? You had the zombie tomb guy. You had forget what the other ones were. There was a lot of stuff going on. There were a lot of challenges to do.
Yeah, in different areas throughout the map. Because, like, there was the one where, remember, you go into the portal and you're in there fighting the guy and the hordes, and then other people can come in and screw you over. Which
I got that one because I jumped in. Our squad jumped in. I shot him one time, and then another squad jumped in and kicked our asses. And then when I was in the gulag, I got notified that I'd completed the challenge because the other team had beaten it.
Nice. Yeah, so I just, like I said, it's just kind of underwhelming. And see, I think, and we've talked about this before too, but like, I think that there should be these events for Christmas. Like, I would fucking love if they would make whatever the map is snow. Make it snow, and then, do that kind of shit. St. Patrick's Day.
Why do we not have snow?
Valentine's Day, if you want to be a masochist, I guess. Fucking worthless holiday. But like St. Patrick's Day, and then like 4th of July, those kind of things. Like, there should be events for those, like 4 holidays for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Halloween, like Call of Duty. Remember, they used to do like a St. Patrick's Day thing. Like, they had charms.
They had the lucky one-shot sniper. Remember, they had all the chests and stuff in one spot, and you could open it to unlock that lucky sniper, and then that thing would just travel around the map all game. Didn't matter who was in it. Somebody picked it up, and they were like, "Yeehaw!" Yeah,
and in World War II, I can remember they had St. Patrick's Day weapon skins, like with the clover and that kind of stuff.
Did they do a St. Patrick's Day this year?
Not that I remember.
I don't remember either. It was either that lousy or they didn't do it.
I feel like we would have talked about it if they did, and I know that we haven't talked about it, so I don't think so.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I know the game took a lot of heat for being a DLC, and
which it wasn't, by the way. I don't care what anybody says, it wasn't.
Warzone definitely feels like a DLC this year. I'll say that. Multiplayer. I will say this: if you're a multiplayer main, like I know Exclusive Ace is a multiplayer main, he doesn't play Warzone. They have feasted this year, which more power to them because they have been shafted for years. Right, the game is really focused on Warzone, so this is the first time they've gone back to multiplayer. It's like a focus, but dude, you got to give us something more because the Warzone folks, we're still here. We still like the big map. Usually,
yeah.
We want to play it more, but you're not helping. You're not helping us.
Also, though, give them credit because a couple months ago I was pretty heavily bitching about all the resurgence nonsense in the BR, and they have toned that shit down a little bit. And so I got to give them a little bit of credit for that. And obviously, I'm playing solos, but I'm still picking up gulag tokens and stuff like that. I've started picking those up. I'm not ignoring those. That's just another opportunity for me to get another kill. So.
Yeah.
I'm going in. I kind of changed my approach on that, but they've really toned down a lot of the resurgence nonsense in BR. But that's about the extent of it. And the other thing too that's really bugging me about Warzone lately is, minus the STG and the static, I don't really feel like anything has been fun to run. The STG to me is the best AR meta we've had all year.
Mm-hmm.
And they fucking bricked it. And now it's that DTIR, which that thing's fire rate is awful. Just awful. I hate it. But you have to run it. It hits like a fucking ton of bricks.
Well, it has a pretty nasty drop off too. Like it's not like how do I put it? It isn't like it was like the STG was, where it's like it's just it's good for like a good chunk of it. You can use it kind of at all ranges.
Mm-hmm.
Like it falls off pretty hard by 40 meters. So it's kind of like it's good. It's a good resurgence weapon for sure. I don't know how well it's going to hold up on the big map again because it just doesn't have the range, and that slow fire rate is just miserable at range. You miss a shot, you're just done.
Well, and you hear like that you have to run the variant to get rid of the smoke. Like the variant that's in the battle pass, that's what everybody was talking about. You have to run that variant in order to get rid of the visual smoke, and that I think one of my top probably 2 or 3 biggest hopes moving forward, like for the next iteration of Warzone, is that the weapons the balancing is better and they're just more fun, and that there are viable weapons in each category to use. That's one of my biggest hopes for the next.
One of the things that I that really was a focus of mine for a long time was weapons and kind of tuning out getting the meta tuned up and really enjoying it. And lately it doesn't change, right? There's literally almost nothing worth running besides the meta. Right now, we've probably got the deepest long-range non-sniper meta we've had in a long time, but it's not great, right? Like the Polymot is still the long-range king because it's easy to use and it doesn't go above 900 milliseconds no matter what range you're at.
It's crazy.
So, I mean, that thing is still your Al-Mazrah king. Excuse me, that thing's still the Al-Mazrah king. I think Al-Mazrah, Urzikstan king. Absolutely can't stand the snipers right now. They feel terrible, and if they don't feel terrible, they don't hit at all ranges. So the alleged sniper revamping never happened. So I guess they changed their mind on that one.
Everything else and punted to next iteration.
Yeah, or punted to the next iteration. I mean, I would love to use the intervention on big map. I think that would be so much fun. But nope, that's not good.
Listen, sniping is fun. And, again, they broke this shit back in Caldera for the Resurgence crowd, dude. I don't care what anybody says. They fucking broke sniping, and it's never been the same since. When they did that nonsense of inside of 43 meters for a headshot, that's a knock. But anything over that, a headshot is not a knock. It has never been the same since. And I hope that they go back on that and they fix it. I don't know that they will. But yeah, like nothing just really, it just doesn't feel fun. Like the weapons don't really feel all that fun anymore. And
a lot of them feel the same. Like at least with close range, we have a pretty open meta. I mean, I know a lot of people still like the static, and it's still a very good gun.
Static is really good still.
But it is toe to toe with at least 5 other guns that are right there with it. There's no
striker.
You have the striker, you have the static, you have the BP50 conversion.
Superior.
You have the shroud conversion, stands toe to toe with everything. You have the Superior's kind of toast a bit, but the Horus, not conversion kit Horus.
Yeah, I got clapped with that yesterday.
And you have, what was the other one? There was another one you could build. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I mean, there's 5 right there, 5 close range guns, all of them very good. And so, I think the idea that why we don't have that at longer range kind of baffles me a bit. Like, I don't understand their aversion to making long range guns enjoyable
either, because it's not like this map. There's some open spaces, but it ain't like Al Mazrah where you had all that. We talked about that, like all the dead space. So it's not like you have to worry about people getting beamed out in the open. But I mean, also with all the jump towers and everything else, it shouldn't really matter much. But yeah, that's one of the big 2, maybe 3 things that I really hope is different for the next Warzone. I miss the Kilo, the Grau, the AMAX, like even the Cold War AK. We talked about that last episode. Like that was a fun meta to use. Like there's the only thing that's truly been fun has been the STG, and the STG has been fun to use. It really has. It's been the best AR in this game. But you know what's wild to me, though, dude?
What?
Is the community has talked about the ACR/MCW for years. How is it that gun has never been the absolute AR meta in this iteration of Warzone? It has been fucking worthless.
It's not worthless. It's actually been a very decent contender since about Season 3. There's just always something better. There's always something better, but it's like, it's one of those things of like, it's so easy to use. It is in its field. I mean, it's one of the better sniper supports right now.
Yeah, with the conversion kit. I'm talking in long range, like just AR. Like if you put it up with the STG, it's not going to compete. It is not.
No, but it's not worthless, right? Like I've gotten some great kills with it. I have a couple of builds that I've run that do very well because you don't miss shots, right? Like a lot of the other gun, with the exception of the STG, which was at launch, which was so easy to use and so broken for that. But, a lot of the other guns that are, a lot of the other ARs, I'll say, have, either have enough recoil or initial gun kick that you're going to miss some shots. The MCW, like especially some of those ground loot builds that they have, you just pick it up and just slam with it. Like it's not a gun you should avoid. Like you can run it. If you find yourself toe to toe with a meta AR, like you'll probably, like if you're both just standing in the open slugging it out, you'll probably lose. But it isn't worthless. It's not like the Dragunov, right? Which is worthless. Or some of these, it's not like the M13C, which was never useful. Right?
Yeah, what's the point, dude? If you're not going to make these guns where you can use them and compete with them, why even fucking put them in the game?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they like, we have too many guns. And I understand from a content point of view, you have to keep producing content. Like you just have to, because otherwise people complain in a live service game. But they don't sunset anything either. And so I would love to see a scenario where they like actually sunset, guns here and there, where it's like, all right, you're this gun is going to be out of the Warzone rotation for a while, and this is going to go back into it and then eventually they bring guns back in that are like in a good that are buffed or somehow viable in some way. Like I would like to see the pool of weapons of primary weapons to be about 60 instead of like 155,000 like we have right now. Like, I think a good 60 weapon pool, and then a variety of other of handguns and whatnot would be great. And they just take the lowest used primaries and kind of just sunset them for a while.
Well, Apex does that. Apex will vault certain guns for a while or put them in the in I forget what it's called, like where the crafting machine. Like they'll do that, or they'll put certain weapons in like their world loadout drop or world drop that they have. I would like to see Warzone do that too. I legitimately think all Modern Warfare 2 guns may as well just be vaulted for this next iteration. Like seriously, like, and again, this comes back to me, if it's not something that you can use and compete with, then it's worthless to me. Like I did compete early on with the MCW, but once the other metas started taking place, dude, I just went away from it.
Yeah.
Because even some of my buddies were like, how the fuck are you killing with that thing? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just hitting shots. Like, it was my favorite gun, and it's still really good in multiplayer. In multiplayer, you can pretty much run whatever you want. It's just here you can't.
Well, and that's definitely that again is one of the problems with Warzone. We have so many freaking guns. And there's no way to have them all be meta, right? Otherwise the game would just be boring. Like there'd be no point in running different guns. You might as well just make different skins for guns at that point. So I understand that. What I'm kind of annoyed with, like, it just goes back to they're just making guns to make guns to keep people happy that they're constantly getting something new. Like that new LSW is that cast off LSW LMG. I think it's fucking garbage. Like, it's so bad.
Did you see the variant they've got on the floor? It's a LMG with a green laser that you can't ADS. Now I got a kill with that yesterday, but it was because the person was dropping in and had a pistol.
It has that one has that attachment on it that gives you that faster strafe like movement speed, which is all fine and good. But holy crap, it's bad.
Yeah.
That gun just is bad. I got in this in the purgatory mode. I dropped in. I was trying to level it up, and literally I got the drop on a guy that had that DTIR, and I was hitting him. I got 2 headshots in, and he was able to turn and obliterate me before I could even like get a kill. And I wasn't missing with it. It just is that bad.
Yeah.
So
yeah, some of these guns are just absolutely terrible. And then, like you said, there's still just a handful that are actually usable.
That's frustrating because
especially the SMGs are good.
And it's very frustrating because if you look back at previous iterations of Warzone, like there have been a lot of guns to pick from that are kind of like under the table. Like Al Mazrah, like you don't have to go far back. You can go to Al Mazrah, and there were points where there were probably 5 or 6 viable ARs.
Yeah, I ran the cast off the entire time until I started playing ranked, and then I started switching up going with the meta for a little bit.
Yeah, you can have the cast off, you can have the STG. I spent a lot of time playing with that battle rifle, the 7.62 battle rifle. I forget the name of it. That just was like, absolutely recoils all over the place. But like, if you could build it right, you could make a nice, I had a great sniper support with it. Yeah. And I remember running ranked with some guys and just blowing, they were blown away at how quickly you could annihilate somebody up close. I mean, there were just so many options at certain points in that game. And they all had a role to play. Like they were all viable in some way. And here it's so hard to find something worth running. And then they don't change it. And I think that's part of the problem. Like Caldera, the first part of Caldera, I feel like they changed the meta every 2 weeks. Like
it was like a rotating thing almost.
And I think that was peak like that was at its best because you could always get in. There was always something to grind for because you had you needed to level up a new gun. You needed to try something different. They were always adjusting what was viable, what was not. And it kind of kept the game in a lot of ways vibrant when the map itself was just dragging ass. And I enjoyed that period extensively. And you look at what they've done now, where it's like it's the same gun for 3 months. Like it's almost as bad as the RPK meta that just went on forever.
Well, yeah, and that leads me to what I'm about to say is if you're not going to do any fucking updates to the map, at least make the guns fun to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and again, I will say the STG has been fun to use. I wish they hadn't nerfed it, but they did. And it's not competing with that DTIR. It just isn't. I'm sorry, it's not. Like, if you shot for shot, it isn't. If somebody's hitting their shots and you're hitting yours, you're going to fucking die every time.
Yep. And it's just, I mean, it's frustrating to me. It's beyond frustrating.
Yeah.
So, but, it is more, we're in that kind of period where there's not going to be a lot going on. We've got what we got, and we're going to see the end of this era of Warzone here in the next, less than 30 days. So, kind of can't wait. I'm a little disappointed that we're not getting the campaign mode a week early, because I kind of that kind of has become a little fun tradition of mine of like stopping Warzone, hopping on the campaign, finishing that out, and then taking a couple days to just that's like a good period, like a defined period to play other stuff. And they're not doing that this year, obviously, because the campaign did so well last year.
Well, when you make a 5-hour campaign, what the fuck do you think is going to happen?
You make a 5-hour campaign that isn't even very good, right?
No, like, it wasn't very good.
It was not. It was not a good story.
I didn't think, if I'm being honest here, I didn't really think Modern Warfare 2's campaign was that great, comparatively speaking. I don't play Call of Duty so I can fucking try to be like Assassin's Creed or fucking Splinter Cell and sneak around and craft shit. I want to fucking blow shit up, dude. That's why I'm playing the game. But, with the fact that we're not getting that early, I probably not going to play it.
Nope.
I don't know when or if I will. Maybe I'll get bored one night and do it. But I mean, as soon as multiplayer hits, I'm grinding multiplayer and grinding those prestiges and those kind of things. I have no interest in not playing multiplayer so I can play a campaign. But yeah. I understand why they did it too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I don't want to say I'm over it right now, but it's like they're not giving us anything, right? That purgatory mode is fun to screw around in. Good to get some clips out of. But I have to go in this week. I want to try the haunting and grind that out. That'll be interesting. I have a haunting win every haunting they've done, so I need to uphold that tradition if I can. Yeah, and then otherwise. They're not even continuing it through Halloween, right? Like, it should go till November 1st. Like, it just should.
It's hard though when you're launching it. They don't want to launch the new game in Halloween state. At least
it would be a different game.
Well, the
they're
thing,
not like it's not interfacing with Warzone yet.
Yeah, but no, man, come on. People aren't going to be playing Warzone once that new game comes out. Like that's there may be a few holdovers. But I mean, pretty
give
much
us Halloween mode on Halloween. Like, how hard is that? Like that. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand how they do this because they've done this before with other holidays where it's like they don't release. They released the bunny, the initial bunny suit characters in May, and it's like, did you not think to put that out over Easter?
Yeah, Easter's usually late March, early April.
Yeah, and those things came out like May. It's like, excuse me, can we not? And the other problem is I think they've overdone they've overdone this year. They've overdone everything with Halloween, right? Because we've had 2 different zombie themed seasons now, right? Yeah. We have the Halloween event, but we also had The Walking Dead, and we've had zombie. And then we had a separate, I believe, zombie LTM in Warzone, right? That brought zombie stuff in. And I just, it's too much, right? And now it's kind of like, here we are again. It's been like the season of zombies, which, and toss in the amount that I've played the zombies mode. I'm kind of like, all right, over it.
So are you kind of in a spot right now where it's like you're probably glad you have your project to work on rather than hopping on this game? I mean, it's a fair question because that's been kind of a conversation that happened on Twitter this week is like, whether you play a game you hate or not. And I will contend that 100% people will play games that they hate, for a myriad of reasons. For me personally, it's not a lot of other options. I don't want to play Apex. PUBG's too sweaty. I don't have a Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, or Battlefield. So Call of Duty is pretty much what I'm playing. That doesn't mean just because you're playing the game, that doesn't mean you're happy with it. And I think that there are some people who just refuse to give up on what they want Call of Duty to be. And so they're going to keep playing it, but they're also going to use their voices moving forward.
I mean, it's not, I'm not eager to play. I'll put it that way. I'm not like, I can't wait to get on tonight. But in a lot of ways, it's kind of been the course of this year, right? Like this year has been from a Warzone standpoint, like a dud. Really,
you seem to play less than you did last year. Like
it's way down.
Yeah,
way down.
like because
I've logged a lot of time in zombies, so I've logged more. I have double the time in zombies and in multiplayer than I do in Warzone. Like both of those have double time in Warzone. The amount of time that I've played Call of Duty has not changed dramatically.
It's just how you're playing it.
But it's the modes I'm playing, and Warzone has been kind of bottom fiddle because honestly, first it was like they turned Warzone into Rebirth Central, big map Rebirth, right? Poor man's Rebirth, and then they can't give us a meta, like an open enough meta to make it interesting. For a long time, they couldn't keep the hackers under control. That's still an open book on that.
I reported a few people last night, man.
Yeah, and then and they haven't changed the map. They haven't given us anything new, right? They gave us Superstore, which was like, it's not even the way Superstore was. Like the layout is right, it feels right inside, but you have so many different ways onto the roof. So the roof plays differently. And nobody goes there, right? Like it used to be, you went Superstore on the drop because that was where you went to sweat it out early, right? You went to test the lobby early. And if you could wipe if you could survive Superstore off the drop, like you were probably going to win the map unless you screwed up, because that means everybody good is dead. And right now it's like, there's like maybe 2 teams will go there and they'll fight it out. And then the other team, the winning team, will just hold it until their gas forces them out. And like nobody goes there. It's like a ghost town. Every time I roll up, there's like 3 people chilling on the roof sniping. And there's nothing going on. It's just a boring POI.
Yeah, I mean, I dropped there for the fuck of it last night. A couple matches. There was 1 or 2 matches I dropped there. Got a kill or 2 or whatever. And it's not. I feel like my drop is probably hotter a lot of times than Superstore. And I drop on top of that hotel that's got like the bar and the restaurant on top of it over there in Old Town.
Yep.
That's pretty much where I've been dropping. But speaking of POIs and stuff like that. So did you see the polls check? Hector hosted a tournament. It was a $20,000 tournament this week. And a lot of the players that were in World Series of Warzone played in it. Mm-hmm. And they basically randomly selected a POI where you had to drop. So you didn't get to choose. They picked it for you.
All right.
But the kicker is you, from what I understand, you had to be there like 60 seconds. Like you had to drop there, be there for like 60 seconds until things started moving before you could actually move out of your POI. Care to take a guess who won the tournament?
Shocking.
SSD.
Shocking.
Take away pop off, they still fucking win.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about this before. It's like those guys are locked in. They have a game plan and they always run their plan. Like, Iceman Isaac pointed out that like they ended up in a good spot and they had cash, they had intel, and they were indecisive. Like they didn't know what to do. They weren't thinking they didn't have good leadership. And as a result, they lost.
Who,
And,
Iceman Isaac or his team?
Yep. And so it's, he had a whole tweet thread about it. And I think it's spot on, right? I think a lot of competitors are not that are talking about it are not willing to like critically analyze their performance. A lot of them were just it feels like a lot of people were just happy to be there. Like, we made it here. Woo!
I think that before the event, people were just resigned to the fact that SSD was going to win, like for World Series of Warzone, just based on track record of like all the tournaments and stuff. But speaking of which, there's a 2v2 that Shifty and Soka are playing in today. Shotzi's playing in it. I think Draza and Hydra, maybe. I can't remember the other two, but it's like a 2v2 multiplayer tournament, I think, that they're playing in.
Yeah.
And, that's something else, dude. That's been a big debate again as to whether, what's better, comp Warzone or comp, multiplayer. And I'll say this off the rip. If you were to say to me that, I just enjoy watching comp Warzone better or Warzone better, I would be like, okay, cool. I completely understand that. But you cannot look at the two, which are different in their own ways, and then just automatically say that comp CDL players can't play Warzone, because that's just simply not the case. There's no fucking way.
Look, CDL players 1-to-1 are generally better than Warzone players, and even Warzone players tend to admit that. We had Waldo on here, right? He placed. I forget what his ranking was at the end of LAN, but he was in the LAN this year.
Yeah,
he was on the podcast last year.
I think he was top 15.
Top 15. I mean,
I think
can't complain about.
Fucking solid, dude.
And he was 100% clear. Like, the CDL players are just, they're better. They're the better players, and the difference between CDL, and Warzone is that Warzone has a little bit more of a strategic element to it. You have to plan. You have rotations. You have, you have the rotations. You have the kind of like reading the map a little bit different, and so there's a lot of knowledge in that. But the reality is 1v1, the CDL is going to win. And in terms of like being able to cooperate, CDL players, like that's literally what they do. They practice cooperating, and Warzone players typically don't do that. Warzone players are typically, solo quadding, solo playing, which is great. It's, good skill sets to have. It's very, very, very challenging to do that, right? But the reality is, when you were in 1v1 scenarios, like the gunny's going to win, and CDL has better gunny, right? They have to learn how to use guns that are, comparatively trash, and be very, very good at that.
They do more with less. So think about it in terms of this. In the CDL, you're getting bare bones perks, bare bones weapons. You're not running a fully kitted out meta weapon every time. Everybody's pretty much on the same, like, even playing field when it comes to that. They take out a lot of the cheese, which they do in the World Series of Warzone too. They do that. And, let me be clear. There are some World Series of Warzone or some Warzone comp players that I think could compete in the CDL. But to say across the board that they could, or that CDL people couldn't, because again, CDL's doing a hell of a lot more with less. It's a lot more chaos in a lot more confined environment. I mean, in Warzone, any bot can look at a fucking circle and see how to rotate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm able to learn how to do that and rotate based on the circle, anyone can.
And I think one of the big challenges with Warzone is it's learning the map and learning all the, there's a lot of ins and outs of the map to learn, right? And so I think when you examine Warzone players and you put them, when you put a CDL player into a Warzone environment, their struggle will be map knowledge.
Sure.
All right. And map knowledge is, without a doubt, the easiest part to learn, because that's just repetition. It's just exploring the map, right? The gun skill and the ability to play those situations, against highly skilled opponents, like that is a trait that is very difficult. That's not the trait that's going to be picked up quickly.
No.
If it was, everybody would do it. Everybody would have it, but they don't. Right? Like, so when you are looking at the two groups of players, it is just the way the CDL works makes it a more difficult game to play. Like, it just does. There's no, like, to me, there's no arguing, right? Like, and I'm sorry, Warzone, hey, I don't love CDL. I don't really watch it. I don't play it. I don't play multiplayer ranked, right? I don't like it. I don't enjoy that game mode because it does have to be so disciplined. Like, it is so gun skill focused and very, very, very low error rate. Like, you can't screw up.
Yeah.
You just can't. And so with Warzone, I think if you were to take some CDL players and actually have them spend time playing Warzone, I think it would be a very, give them a couple months. SSD is probably the only team that would hold their own. Everybody else would get mopped. And they would get mopped quickly. Like, just the cooperation, the efforts, the gun skill, all of those things are very hard to learn. CDL players, it's kind of like a football team, right? Like, teammates got to be in sync. They got to practice together, right? These CDL players, they know their roles. They play them very well. There's not a lot of individuality, right? Warzone, there's a ton of, it's very individualist.
Dude, the rotations, like on Hardpoint, the rotations on when to rotate, which crosses to hold, when to give yourself up so your teammate can make a play, like those kind of things. And, getting on the, your hill time, like there's just so much. And again, I love watching both. Like, I legit watch the World Series. I watched probably, and I'll say this year, I probably watched more competitive Warzone than I did the CDL. And usually that's not the case. I'm going to watch more CDL this year. Even though it is on fucking YouTube, I'll have to figure out a way to make that work. But, cause I like doing the watch parties, but also too, the watch parties were kind of fucked up because my audio. So I may not even be able to do that anyway. But anyway, like, I just think they're both, I think they're both good at what they do in their own right. I just don't think you can discount the CDL. I think the CDL folks would have an easier transition into Warzone than Warzone people into the CDL.
Yeah. And, so I played last year in ranked. I picked up a couple of games with with some of our friends from Involved that actually, that are ranked, Warzone multiplayer players. They're not Warzone players.
Yeah, like Alex is multiplayer.
Alex, yeah. So I actually played with Alex, and he hopped into Urzikstan ranked with me, and he's like, I haven't played this map. This is my first time on the map. He dropped like 18 kills and just fragged that lobby out, and it was, and we were in like gold lobbies, like there were gold, platinum. Some high, some people getting up there. Like, it wasn't like we weren't in like bronze lobbies. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And we had, because I had somebody else playing with us that was higher, higher ranked, and so it was like, it was a really good experience of like seeing what somebody who is that good at their gun skill versus like Warzone players. Like, it was unreal how good he was. Like, he didn't know where he was going. He was like, I don't know where to go. I'm like, he's like, what if we go over here? I'm like, if you go over here, you're going to get killed by the circle, this, that, and the other thing. It's, oh, okay. It's like, he didn't know the buildings. He didn't know anything, but, he ran into somebody and he killed him every time.
Some people just know how to fight, man. So we're wrapping up here. But I did want to mention the, what did you think? What do you make of the Assassin's Creed delay to 2025? Ubi's going through it, by the way. Them fuckers, they're struggling this year so far.
Honestly, they're laying in the bed they've made for themselves. Look, here's the thing. I don't care if who the characters are, if they're like authentic characters, right? Like, I go all the way back to, early days of Nintendo, right? When you played Metroid And now it's common knowledge, but back then nobody knew that Samus Aran was a woman, right?
Yeah.
It was just a badass character that you played, and it turns out to be a woman, and nobody cared, right? It wasn't a big deal, right? So you played, so what? Played Metroid, played Super Metroid. Super Metroid's one of my all-time favorite games. Loved that game. Didn't care that I was playing as a woman. What you run into is modern gaming for modern audiences tries to sell a game with a certain aesthetic. And not everybody likes that. And when they don't, and they say that, this is where it isn't the fact that they do things the way that they do. It isn't the fact that they make characters look the way that they do. It's that when their customer base, their audience comes back to them and says, we don't like this, the response isn't, well, let's kind of talk about why it is that way. Let's, hey, here's options to kind of alleviate the issues that you have, or just, say nothing at all. It's this parade of developers and executives that basically come out and say, if you don't like it, don't play the game. And so they don't, right? And we just went through this with Concord.
Battlefield 2, remember? We were playing it wrong. We were playing Battlefield wrong because we didn't like the fucking specialists or whatever.
Yep. And we are in a point in the world, and honestly, this is everybody. We are seeing company after company take their Bud Light moment, and it has nothing to do with the socio-political things that people associate it with.
I mean, I'd prefer all that shit stay out of fucking games and let's just play games and everybody be cool with one another. But unfortunately, that's not fucking possible.
It's irrelevant to what happened because Bud Light did not go down because they hired a social media star to do a promotion. That wasn't the problem. The problem is you had that marketing exec who got on her podcast or whatever and basically said, we don't like our customers and we don't want them anymore. We want new customers. And everybody said, oh, okay, bye. It isn't, companies sponsor stuff and get into, piss off their customer bases all the time. And you know what? Nothing happens. There's a reason nothing happens.
Yeah.
Because nobody actually cares that much, right? Like they'll post some stuff on Twitter and then they move on. And they go back to drinking their beer, right? But when companies tell their customer bases that they aren't wanted, then the customer bases listen now, right? And that was like the first time that we really saw that, where the company said, "We don't want you as our customer anymore," and they go, "Okay, fine, we'll go to your competitor." And now we are literally being told by developers, by companies, that if you don't love what we're doing, don't buy the game. Well, and then they don't buy the game, and you end up with a $400 million project lasting less than 2 weeks before it's canned and topping out at like 600 people, of which a majority of them apparently were employees who were told to play.
Holy shit, dude.
Right? That is an abject failure. And it comes from not wanting to listen to your customers. If your customers say you don't like something, okay.
Find out why they don't like it.
And I mean, sure, some of them don't like it because they're assholes.
Sure.
Right? But don't antagonize them. Don't poke them and lump everybody else who has complaints with that. Look at Star Wars.
I knew you were going there.
Star Wars Outlaws is objectively a failure, right? It is underperforming by their own admission. And when you go back and you look at it, yeah, they took criticism for the main character not being attractive, which is fine. They don't have to make the main character attractive. But when you look at the response to the main character being attractive, or to the criticisms of the attractiveness of the main character, you have executives at the company basically saying, we don't care what you have to say, and we don't need you. And I'll have to pull up the exact quote, but that was the gist of it, is we don't want you as our customer. And then what happened is gameplay comes out, and objectively it looks bad. Like the graphics aren't great, the movement isn't great. There's tons of clips and footage of the combat being just stupid, right? The AI, the AI can't handle their own business. That they, just the cover system doesn't work, right? The stealth system is a bust, it's a failure. And that criticism, when those criticisms come out, right? The response from the team and the developers was basically, you're all bigots because you don't like the character. You're trying to tank the game because you don't like the attractiveness of the character. And the reality is they're two separate discussions, but you're lumping everything together and deflecting the criticism.
Let me say this. Star Wars is one of those things. Battlefield is one of those things. I mean, hell, even Call of Duty to a certain degree. There are just certain things with the fan base that you don't want to do. Like Battlefield, you don't want to basically take their game and completely fucking change it. They're pretty die hard. It's basically what I'm saying is it's die hard fan bases, right? And if they're telling you something that they don't like, you need to fucking listen. I mean, look at Acolyte. Everybody hated Acolyte, or at least a lot of people did. And it wasn't because there was a female character or whatever. It was because they're redefining the Force and like certain things about the Star Wars galaxy that people and universe that people have come to love. You can't do that. The same thing with Battlefield. And you know what's even wild to me about this Outlaws, based on what you just said, with the stealth being shitty and the cover system being shitty? Ubi has the infrastructure for that between the fucking Division and Assassin's Creed. How do you fuck that up? Like, how do you mess that up that bad? Because they have other properties that were working great. Like, that has that stuff in it already.
Yeah. And so Assassin's Creed is kind of like in this weird spot where they produced a game that on paper should work, right? You're finally bringing ninja assassins to Japan, right? You're finally bringing it home for like that genre of people. I mean, like the fact that it's never been in Japan blows my mind, right? Like I can't believe
they never China for that matter.
But like like ninjas and like it is like that is like an Assassin's Creed thing, right? Like the way they do the assassins is so there's so much like connection to like how ninjas work that you just compared to like in other cultures, like you just don't have something like ninjas elsewhere. Like they just don't exist anywhere else.
She applies better than the samurai does for Assassin's Creed because that's just a brute force character. Like what
exactly? And it is such a deviation from what Assassin's Creed is.
Yeah.
And when your Assassin's Creed fan base says that this is not it, right? Like this is not what we play the game for. We play the game to be an anonymous like person just kind of floats through a crowd and shanks somebody as they go by, right? Like and then disappears. Like that's the point, right? And if you get if you get into it with a group of people, right? Like that's not the goal of the game. But
it can be done.
It can be done, but like that's not like it's usually because you made an error. Right?
Everything's tied to stealth and being sneaky, like you're talking about, right? Like,
and so on its surface, it's such a deviation from what Assassin's Creed is. And when people came back and they said, "We don't like this," it turned into a whole thing about the character. And one of the most interesting things is when you look in Japan, how it was received. It's not well liked, and according to a lot of Japanese who are vocal on Twitter about it, and they focus less on who the main character is, and focusing more on the fact that in feudal Japan there are mixing, matching Chinese and Korean architecture. They've literally stolen artwork from artists and actual groups out there and put it in the game that without asking, without license. They are basically making up their own culture and their own history there for assassins, for feudal Japan. And feudal Japan that isn't how it was, right? Like, and so they haven't done this in other games. Like you look at like early Assassin's Creed, it's like they replicate like Florence beautifully. Like they do a very, very authentic job, and they replicate the culture very well. They're very well studied in it. And here, it felt like they were just making stuff up and just picking random stuff that looked cool. And
that's
as
crazy.
a result, people are very upset about it. And the general response early on to a lot of this criticism and a lot of this feedback was basically, well, you're just, you're not thinking right. You're not, appreciating it right. You should love what we do because we're doing it. And that is, at the end of the day, one of the big problems that you have with these games. And so, honestly, good for them if they have taken this to heart and they understand that they've made errors and they have to fix some of this stuff, because, they've delayed the game until next year. I don't think they're canceling it, but they're definitely not, for a game that was ready to go, like for them to delay it 4 months is a lot, right?
It
like
wasn't going to do well against Call of Duty anyway. I mean, because there is some crossover. I get they're two different kinds of games. But I will say this too, Sub. 2 words come to mind here. And I think that these developers, these movie producers need to keep this in mind at all times. It's called source material. Stick to the fucking source material. Like, stop taking liberties with shit and then complaining when people are like, hey, I don't like that. Like, why do you think Henry Cavill, like, one of the reasons he left The Witcher, the Halo show, fucking 1 season canceled. They didn't stick to the source material. It's not hard, dude.
And, and I contrast that with Fallout, the series Fallout, which stuck to the source material religiously. Like they were on top of it. And this show was amazing. Even my wife does not do video games. She doesn't know anything about,
Is that show really good? Like, it's good?
It is one of the best video game adaptions that I've ever seen. And it's honestly probably one of the best shows they've made this in the last like 2 or 3 years. It's probably the best show they've had since Mandalorian.
Nice.
Like it's phenomenal. And my wife loved it. And my wife does not do video games. She doesn't care, right? Like if you go beyond Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog, she's like, I don't know, whatever. So she got into it and was super excited on it. It's probably some of the best TV you've had in a long time.
What's the movie that just tanked that they came out with? I'm trying to think. It wasn't Fallout. It was the other one.
Oh, Borderlands.
I heard that movie fucking tanked.
Yeah. Nobody like it. It didn't make any sense. Like that's not I don't know why that's an IP they thought they could make a movie out of. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But
that game I have no interest in that game anyway.
It's just, yeah. You don't try and make a plot out of that movie. But yeah, I think the problem is you just have so many. You have so many of these games, or these IPs, right? Games, movies, and everybody wants to do something different, which is great. Like different is good. I like experimentation. I like trying new things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when you stick your head so hard in the sand and you refuse to listen to feedback, you have serious problems. And I'm gonna point to Modern Warfare 2 as like a good example of this, right? And you remember the battle of the red dots, right? And people were just like, put the red dots on the mini map. And Infinity Ward literally wrote back, they replied to it and they said, no, we don't want you to play that way. We want you to play the way we want you to play. And they made a lot of decisions, a lot of choices that fueled that mentality. And the criticism and the backlash was severe over time, and it grew significantly. And so one of the things that they did over the course of the game is they 180'd a lot of things, and whether Infinity Ward did or they were forced to, I don't know. But they changed loadouts, they changed moving while plating, they changed the randomized recoil on the guns, right? They walked that back so you don't have you didn't have the left or right deviation. You remember when Warzone 2 or when Modern Warfare 2 launched, the recoil patterns on the guns would literally deviate left to right focus recoils. And they walked that back. And so at the end of the day, they did listen, and it has taken 2 years to walk back most of the unpopular changes. But they listened, and they heard people eventually, and made changes to how the game plays, which honestly is how companies should react when they try to do something and it is overwhelmingly negatively received by their existing fans. Because you can't grow a company, you can't grow a product if you don't have anybody who wants, like if it's unwanted by everybody. And some people will unwant it because they've never tried it, right? But they're not being enticed to try it. And some people will unwant it because you are doing something that they don't want, right? That they don't like. And companies need to remember that you have your fans are your customer base. That's who's buying your product. And then if you want to grow your customer base, you have to take the thing that the fans like, and then you have to add on to it. You don't take away from it. You don't grow your audience by subtracting your fan base, because they're just going to get mad. And then when you tell them that they're not wanted, they get madder, and then they don't come back.
You need your core group, right? Like, you need your core group of fans. Like, it doesn't matter whether they're in the minority or not. Battlefield has a core group of hardcore fans. Call of Duty has a core group of hardcore fans like us. Yeah, you want to appeal to the other people, but you have to keep that group happy, which is why all the complaints on social media over the year of Modern Warfare 2, that shit helped. I don't care what anybody says, it helped. They monitor social media. Every company does, like you said. So point being, you just got to keep fucking the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And if you're a developer, don't alienate your hardcore, your core fans. Just don't do it.
And we would never alienate our hardcore fans on our podcast. We appreciate every one of you for showing up and tuning in. We absolutely like that. Please remember to share it out. Either share this broadcast or even better, tune in on Spotify and jump into our Discord and catch us there as well. I've got some stuff to do, so we got to wrap it up a little bit early today. But yeah, appreciate everybody who hopped in. We think it was a great episode. Had a good time, and we are going to run out the jingle now, and we're going to catch you all on the next one.
Don't forget to download on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
This has been Sub 1 Kitty, along with J007 TV and the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. We're logging off now, so we'll see you next time.